this is a very popular topic in the community. You got a lot of people that teach this, and I have a lot of, my own opinions of my own research on the matter. But I do want to hear from the community I do want to hear from the community today and see where we stand as a collective. And hopefully, what I had in mind was that different people would call in with different information that maybe support these ideas and don't. And so that I can absorb all of the knowledge, from both worlds, as well as make my little input here and there. How I do it based on what y'all giving me. But the community is kind of divided up on this one. We do have a caller on the line right now, and we want to give a shout out to our first caller, AJ Davis. Thanks for being the first caller, man. I'm gonna turn you the mic over. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to give my 2 cents in. I'm not sure exactly all the way where you're going with it, but I do know was of what they call a Slavic people, and what I understand, they were named that, and they were of I guess you want to say Caucasus phenotype is what they say. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And that they were supposed to be the first slave. That's what I know of the
I've
subject
heard
matter.
this.
I sort of tuned in, sort of get educated on it. I've heard this topic before, but at the end of the day, it's kind of like how far are you going back? That could be the first time when it was written down, or the first time it was recorded, or something like that. A lot of
Right.
times, you're just not going far back enough to know when the first of something was. Yeah, you have to go all the way back. So that's sort of my deal.
And just to piggyback on what you're saying, dear brother, I think you probably would agree with this one. I don't know. You can let me know, but some things there is no first to it. It's kind of like asking the question, like, who were the first one to own children? Who were the first one to own flowers? Who were the first one to invent exercising? I think certain things are just universal to the human species. Like, no one was the first human to start blinking their eyes. You know
Yeah,
what I'm saying?
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
it's just something we was all just been
All
doing.
doing,
You know what I'm
all doing.
saying?
Right, right. I that that
So
that that, that that just sort of makes sense because I think everybody wasn't we wasn't always separated as much as the different cultures as what we have now. I think there was a time where everybody was doing, but for the most part, some of the same shit, just in a different way. You know what I mean? And I would think slavery would be one of them. Slavery would be one of them.
that's definitely true, man. So when it comes to the question of and I want to ask it how I worded it, were we the first slave owners? I will answer that as no, but I think the question should be rephrased, AJ, because I think what they really trying to ask is, were we the first ones to institutionalize slavery? That's where we get interesting because what we see with the colonialists, with the white man, he made slavery an entire institution. People went to school under Willie Lynch to learn how to break and make a slave. This thing was a whole. It was beyond just, hey, I own some prisoners or something, because when we say we own slaves, then one could make the argument, well, how can I be mad at the white man for enslaving us if we was doing it? So what they would say is, well, when we was enslaving each other, we wasn't beating each other. It wasn't harsh. We was just kind of giving each other jobs. So then I would argue, why do we call it slavery? We should
Mm.
just call it, these was my employees. They had slaves, you know.
I think at one point the word slave didn't mean what we thought it was. A lot of times you was paying off a debt, is what I understand. And so
And work
anytime
work it
somebody
off.
would owe somebody something, they would pay it off with servitude. Now, how long that was, and that's a whole nother deal. I'm not sure if the whole idea of being a slave for the rest of your life, but I
Hmm.
think that's sort of where that comes from. It was business. You know what I'm talking about? It was kind of business. And in some extent, it was also, I believe, considered moral. To if that's all somebody could do is pay off their debt, do service to, then because they didn't have a coin, and that's what they was. You know what I'm saying? So I don't think it's at one point everyone didn't really see anything wrong. I think it was accepted at a certain point. People just understood, hey, you mess up, you got to pay that. You know what I'm saying? You got to pay that back. I think they call it. I think they call it debt. Debt prison. You know what I'm saying? Kind of the same thing we got today.
I think that a lot of our people get in the way when we're trying to go in on the oppressor. And they say, but a black man was the first man to own slaves. And that's like, to me, a Negro that's too smart for his own good. And then because you kind of come in out of context when we're trying to demonize slavery and what the white man did, you have a group that's trying to reclaim their American pride and their origins here. And part of embracing it is the fact that slavery was big here. But the whole thing is here when we try to stunt like, well, you got a lot of people that like to show you that, hey, black people were slave owners. And I think that's the white man trying to make us own his evil history. And we're going to do it because we're so desperate to be always included in some shit. So now, we want to be slave owners too. When really, when we bring up the word slave owner, we talking about a person beating on you. He owned you as property and all that. Like, my employer don't own me as property. I can quit anytime and you can't beat me and all that. So when we bringing up white slavery in the form of what the white man doing, and then y'all try to hop and say, well, black folks on, that's out of context. It's inappropriate. It's like a stain on our hit when you do it that way, if you ask me.
Well, I'll be honest with you, also to beg to differ. I think it seems that we don't see a lot of cruel black slave master. You know what I'm saying? You see that on the other side. If you look at it, whenever you put it in context, when they talk about a black slave owner, it seems to me more like it was what I'm talking about. It was more on a business. It was more of a of a debt that was owned, and they had them out there in the fields. Maybe the land that they own, type of deal. I see it anytime you start talking about in a cruel way when it comes to slavery. You think about that white man. But I don't know too many stories. I've
Well,
heard
when
too
is
many.
slavery ever a cool way? My bad. I just want to throw that in there before you go forward.
Well, again, because I think it's such a thing as somebody paying off a debt that they can run off
That ain't
and get.
slavery.
Right. Well, I mean, if you owe a debt, then you got to pay the debt off,
But
kind
that
of
ain't
deal.
slavery, though. That's paying a debt off. In
Well,
fact, that's actually something that I actually can encourage that, because if you owe somebody, son, if you don't got the money, then you need to ask to cut their grass. You need to go and do something like that. But son, you ain't no damn slave. You just paying off your debts. You know what I'm saying?
I think the word, that's what I'm saying. That's what it was. But the word, they had to stop calling it that word because they used that word to go on like we talking about beating with whips and chains and cruelty type of deal. But technically, when you paid a debt owner, you had to do that. You was a slave. They called you a slave type of shit. You know what I'm saying? They called you
Well,
a
well,
slave.
let me ask you this. Did they mean slave the way that the colonial European mean the word when they said?
I don't think so. No,
Okay, okay.
but now we look at it like that. Now they change it into when you say the word slave, that means they going upside your head with that whip and all that type of shit. You know what I'm saying? But back then, the word slave wasn't used automatically in that sense. You know what I'm talking about? In a cruelty sense type of deal. I mean, you might have you might be down or messed up on business or damage somebody's property or even hurt somebody and you had to pay a debt back. You know what I'm talking about? And they made you a slave. That's what they was calling it. That's what they
Okay,
would call it.
so what we can conclude from this is that the word slave and the word employee have often been used as synonyms throughout history, but when they're used as synonyms, that don't mean they mean in the same context of slavery. Can we agree with
Facts.
that? I
I
got you.
agree with that. I'll
I
give you
got you.
that one. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That's what's up. So let me ask you about the other part then. Were all of our people slaves? Because here's my thing, what I'm gonna say. All of our people were slaves. If you black, if you consider what you call FBA, Aboriginal, Indigenous, all of us come from, we weren't the slave owners. In other words, if we're gonna get reparations, just putting it out there, even though it's nothing burger, we are all descendants, Ados, descendants of slavery. Like we all experienced slavery as a collective. And you always have a group of guys that'll say, well, I didn't, not me. And I'm saying, bro, we all were slaves. Do you think there's a problem with my approach? Because my approach is basically, listen, if one of us is slave, we all slaves. Ain't no such thing as what you dudes was slave. I'm over here. To me, then, okay, well, you ain't one of us no more then. Because even if I'm rich as hell and y'all in the projects, I'm still gonna see myself as still y'all. Like I'm not gonna fucking, you get like, you see what I'm saying? Like if one
I
of
hear,
us
I hear, I
slaves,
hear what
all
you're
of us
saying.
slaves type
I,
shit. Yeah.
I hear what you're saying, and that's kind of a tough one because that goes back to, we talk about what slaves was. I think there was some people. Well, okay, if you look at it like that, okay, it's because this amount of people were slaves, and those are your people. Those are my people. Then that makes me a slave too. Well, I don't necessarily agree with that because you didn't have to be a rich man. You could have been in a family to where again I think it goes back to business and debt. You could have been in a family who was able to maybe hold they land down. They went down from generations and generations. It didn't get caught up in a bad business deal with somebody own you and the sharecropped on your land, and now you got to work on your own shit and made you a slave. I think there might not be very many of them, but I think, and I don't think you would have to be rich to maybe get away from that. It, I, I'm not sure. I'm just not sure if I would say everybody is a slave because this amount of people was a slave. I think. I mean, if anything, you can
Are you
say
familiar?
if you had to go to work, then that makes you a slave. You know what I'm
Well,
saying?
you got to understand why I'm saying that. It's based upon the same logic of this great statement that was created by Dr. King. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but the statement goes a little something like this: an injustice anywhere is an injustice.
Everywhere,
So that's why I said, like, just say
or
my
or an injustice to
my
one
thing.
of us is an injustice to
Justice to
all of
all
us.
of us. So that's what
Right.
I'm saying. Like, when I say all of us slaves, now a person may say, well, look, my people ain't really, we didn't go through that. I'm gonna say, bro, if you're identifying with the collective, we went through that. We, because it's like this, right? It's like I play for a football team, AJ Davis, and
Mhm.
and the team go out there and they take a beating. But because it's my first day with the team, I say, well, I ain't been getting my ass whooped all week like y'all. That's y'all. I'm just here with the team. No, I got to show
Nah,
that
you
I'm
on the
part.
team,
I'm
bro.
on the
You on the
team. I
team.
got to let them know, no, bro, we lost. I can't
Yeah.
be like y'all lost while I'm wearing the uniform. Otherwise, if I'm not going to identify with the team, I got to take the uniform off and say, look, I'm over here. That's why I say about the people who say, well, I wasn't no slave. Well, if there was some of us that was and you identify with this team over here, put yourself aside. Because guess what? It's like this, AJ. Most of us, descend from slaves, not slave owners. So if we're making an argument from the perspective of the majority, for example, reparations and all that, do we need Negroes showing up saying, hold up, white man, I wasn't a slave. Hold up, bro, we trying to get reparations. Keep your excluded, wanna be out the group looking ass over here. You get what I'm saying, though?
Well, if we saying this about as far as everybody did it, everybody can be a slave type of deal.
I'm just trying to
Then,
throw a good bill too to try to
yeah,
throw
yeah,
some
real
good
talk.
stuff.
I see you. I wish I had one of them in your hand right there. I see you. If you saying that we was all that, right?
Mhm.
Then what would distinguish the difference between my people and their people? Are we basing it just on a type of a phenotype, a
It's like
race
this.
of people? Like if
It's
because what if
I,
my people was going through it, right, and the next clan also was going through it, right, and the next clan would also going through it, right? Like does it matter who's the slave, or it just matter because they black?
we ain't
It
identified. Here's the thing about what I'm saying. I'm saying as a group of people in America that we call FBA, let's just use that for lack of better words to
right,
see to know who we talking about.
right,
We gotta stop identifying ourselves by our struggle based upon what we went through or didn't go through, and
man.
start trying to identify ourselves for what we're trying to accomplish. So that's what I'm saying about the people that say, well, I didn't go through slavery. I did, or I didn't. I didn't. Well, I descend from slavery. Well, I didn't. Fuck all that. Let's talk
Mhm.
about the group of people that we talking about right now that this other group in power is targeting, and they don't care which one of us come from slavery or not. They targeting
Mhm.
all of us. You see what I'm
Mhm.
saying? So while we're
Mhm.
divine on the bougie shit, like the nigga that saying, well, I didn't grow up in the hood. I'm black, but I grew up in Bel Air. But the police gonna pull you over in racial profile too.
Mhm. Mhm.
Let's identify together with this plight. You feel me? Or is that
Well,
I
I
could be
think if
tripping?
if that's what you're saying, right? If you don't want to identify with the struggle, then that's how you get away with it. You don't identify with the struggle. You be on some nigga, I ain't nigga black, I'm OJ. Nigga, you be on some nigga, I don't fuck around like that. Nigga, I'ma act like nigga ain't nobody finna pull me over because nigga I ain't do nothing wrong, nigga. And you ain't finna be walking around here with that paranoia, you know what I'm saying, your mind. Like I mean, like you said, if that's what we're trying to get to, then we gotta act like that. We gotta act like that. Yeah, I'm just like the next man. You base me off my moral, not the color of my skin. You base me off my spirit. You base me on what I got going on, not because I look like this. You know what I'm talking about? Not because my hue is darker than yours. You know what I'm saying? Not because I got nappy hair. You know what I'm saying? That if that's what we're gonna, we identify with what our spirit is doing. We identify with what kind of moral we got going on. What is your accomplishment in life? What do you think the purpose of life is? What do you think we're supposed to be doing with our kids and raising our children? We should be identified on that.
I don't think so. Because I think that all that is based upon what's called personal identity. When it comes to community and all that, I think that people can put their personal, because part of your personal identity is I didn't go through slavery.
Well,
Part of,
everything I mentioned was community.
but
We talk about
hold on. What I'm saying though, if a person may say, well, I'm a pimp, man, and I don't care about no families. I care about pimping and hoeing, but I do want to fight against police brutality. I do want to fight against this. If a person may say, well, look, man, I don't really care about, you know, I just care about the people as a collective. Only thing I'm saying is this: putting much of our ideologies aside and thinking about what's affecting the group from the enemy. Like you know what I'm saying? Like, I
yeah.
get what you saying, ain't nothing wrong with that. But at the end of the day is what I'm saying is trying to get galvanized like on a social political level. We gotta
Right.
leave a lot of our own little traditional viewpoints and shit, and just start. Cause what we uniting about is the fact we got a common enemy.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
for example, like if you got even a game, not all gang members got the same goddamn outlook on every damn thing. Like, some gangsters may say, yeah, man, protect your family, boom, boom, boom. Some gangsters may say, man, fuck a family, nigga, I'm pimp. Like I said, but all
Right.
agree that there's an enemy that's trying to kill all us from the rival ops that's trying to kill in this
Real
game.
talk. Real
So
talk.
they don't give a fuck about what all the other disagreements about. One of them niggas may be into Buddhism. One of them
Right.
niggas may be a Baptist church member. But they both from that sect. And why
Right.
they collab this because this our territory and them niggas over there trying to
Is
kill
the
us over here.
yeah, 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 yeah. That's one thing they gonna stick together on. One thing they
Right.
all got in common, a common
Yeah.
goal. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah, yeah.
And
And the
they
thing
don't
about
say,
it,
and then the thing, one last liner. See, because in the set, they don't say, well, look, you broke, but guess what? I'm rich as hell. They don't. Now I ain't in no set of that. I'm just guessing. A nigga can correct me, but let me give you the flow, man. I'm just saying, like, we separate by these different tax brackets, and well, I was descend from slaves. Well, I didn't descend from slaves. Well, look, we all being attacked right now. But yeah, you got it. My
already
bad.
talk about that ops. That ops, you know what I'm talking about? It can look like any old kind as long as if it's a danger to us, because it's gonna look like it can look like anybody. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's one thing we definitely need to do is figure out who the ops is, man. Stop letting these niggas slide, man. These niggas who these niggas be wanting to be like, nigga, be the ops. In real life, you know what I'm talking about? They really got your kids out here on some other shit, bro. And that shit to me is be like is it's crazy to me now, bro. Like nobody even cares no more, bro. You know what I'm saying? They rather argue to be just to be right than argue to learn something. You know what I'm talking? Nobody really want to learn nothing, bro.
You know what? I want to really stay on subject about were our people all slaves and were we the first slave owners? One other thing I wanted to point out about this topic, right? When a lot of people talk about, well, black people were slave owners too, guess what y'all never peep? They never show the black slave owner that owned the white slave. They
Mm-hmm.
said they say the black man was a slave owner too, and they always, let us know he owned black slaves. But see, the white man, for the most part, only targeted black people for slavery. So it ain't the same where you saying, well, we was enslaving our own people for they was enslaving our people. That ain't a real flex.
Yeah.
But people may try to use my thumbnail as proof that the black man had white slaves. People, that is a AI generated photo, right? We in the future now,
Right.
2025. Go ahead,
Right.
you got it.
No, you good, man. I don't know, man. I wonder when, like you said, when we was talking about when was it industrialized, I wonder if in other countries was there melanated people who had white slaves. I don't know. I think at the end of the day, like we was talking about, everybody enslaved every damn body. You know what I'm talking about? If you was on some kingdom, you know what I'm talking about, dynasty type of, you know what I'm saying, it was on that type of shit, then yeah, you might owe some money to the kingdom. You might owe some money to whatever legion you come from, and they made you a slave. And I think sometimes they show you in the movies, nigga, anybody can be a slave. As far as us thinking we was the first slave owners, well, if you want to use logic, how a lot of these people think that everybody come from black people, then that means then yeah. If you want to say that, then I mean everybody came from us. You don't think that we was enslaving motherfuckers, or then you got to think, well, how did the script get flipped? You know what I'm saying? How did we become the slaves, and when they come from us? You know what I'm saying? You got to think of it all like that. If you want
Mm-hmm.
to be like logical, you know what I'm talking about. When you think like that, You know, who was the slave first? You know, if we taught them everything and how they enslave us, this type of shit. You know what I'm saying? For
And let
real.
me give a shout out to the sister Demi. Let me give a shout out to NO East, New Orleans East on the call, and to the chat room as well.
Peace.
Peace and
In
love.
Peace, sister. Peace, peace.
New Orleans, whenever you want to interject, you or the sister, go right ahead. But I'll say this. What makes me kind of skeptical about black people participating in owning slaves is that if we're tribal people, these are facts. And even the colonizer will tell you when he showed up to this land and he was trying to purchase territory and all that, the colonizer said he had to educate the indigenous people of this land on what ownership meant, on how to read contracts, on agreements and all that, because according to a lot of the colonialists, the indigenous people of this land, we talking about when they first made contact, because a lot of these people would like to talk about way after the fact when we done made contact with the pilgrims and we already been exposed to their capitalistic system and we kind of already slyway incorporating into it. The early diaries, when they first made contact with these indigenous people, man, we're talking about a lot of capitalistic concepts we got today. Like, they didn't understand a concept of like owning land. To my understanding, our people didn't have a concept of like you know how they have like the Louisiana Purchase, all, you know how they said that the colonizer so-called colonized America through purchasing it. But the problem is, yeah, you doing business with people that don't even understand the legalese of your corporate language. The same thing happening today when people signing over their soul and intellectual property because they don't understand the entities. Yeah.
That is, I have heard that exact deal, at least when it comes to the whole idea of not understanding how to own land. I would think that would also would be to own a person as well. You would think, you know, I'm not sure, but at least over here, you know, when you look at the old American, the old, the indigenous, the fact we was already over here. Now you say it's before we already got exposed to it, but what I understand, a lot of the way some of the government was set up originally, they got from us that was already over here. But I have heard of, you know, them and writing down and stories of so-called Indians not understanding the idea of owning land. Like it just didn't make sense to them type of shit. You know what I'm talking
Well,
about?
here's the thing. A lot of somebody in the chat said show proof. I want you to join so we can have a back and forth. Now, they said that Manhattan, which is one of the richest boroughs in New York, was purchased for like $24. But you know that the Dutch who bought it from the dude named Peter Minuit so-called purchased the island from Native Americans for $24. But the transaction is often presented as a legitimate sale of land, implying that the Native Americans willingly relinquished their territory. But see, here's the thing. It's just like these young rappers today. Let me land, bro. It's just like these young rappers today, right? These young rappers didn't willingly relinquish their masters and all that. They ignorantly did it. And there's a difference between willingly and ignorantly, and then will for ignorance. But when it comes to the natives, it wasn't will for ignorance, and it wasn't will. It was simply ignorance. It was a straight up, like the police trying to trip you up to say something you didn't say and all that. But see, the whole thing is like, my research to sum all is up. A lot of people say, well, it was deceptive practices. And why they say that is because it's like you're trying to get the chief to go ahead and sign right here with a lack of understanding of what exactly they're signing. We do that today, even on the internet. We check boxes, all that. This is an old game to get your consent without you willfully giving it up, but you ignorantly giving it up. So that's it in a nutshell.
100%, and I think that goes back to the people over here who has how they lost their land. I think it was bad business, and that's how when we talk about that debt. I think that's how we became slaves. That's me. But go ahead, my G.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep the floor open for anybody else. Yeah, but you said to relinquish a debt. That's how we became slaves. We were never in debt to the Dutch in Manhattan. They wasn't in debt. There was no debt that the natives had in Manhattan when they.
I'm,
Yeah.
I'm thinking later on. I'm thinking like later on, like especially all up and through the South.
When did we get in debt to the invader? If anything, he was in debt to us.
See, that's what I'm saying. Like when you talk about these contracts and how we didn't understand, that's what I think would happen. That I think there was contracts and the midst of us, like you said,
Oh
them
yeah,
owing us or
definitely
teaching
paper
them
genocide facts. Yeah.
and teaching them type of shit. In the meantime, it was bad business done out of ignorance. You know what I'm talking about? And I think that's how a lot of people's land got took straight like
Yeah,
that.
I'm with you on that. I'm with you on that.
and
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 put them in debt at the same time. And we talking about what do you call it, voluntary servitude. Those are one of those synonyms words with slaves. Real talk, sharecropping and all that. Holler at your boy Dan Calloway. He real good with shit like that. It just started making sense to me. You know what I'm talking about?
only thing I will always debate is our participation in the institution of slavery. Because look, AJ, another thing, we don't have any literature on slavery. Like we don't have a history of people. Because in order to have a slave, you gotta transform them from being a human into a slave. You don't just have a slave snapping your finger. It's a whole brainwashing and breaking process. And I'm telling you, the people who got the most literature written on how to make a slave don't look like us. So even to this day, if we wanted to learn anything about trying to create a slave, we will have to go to the colonizer. So when you bring up, well, someone owed me, so I made them cut my grass, that ain't slavery to me. And I think that Negroes need to quit trying to make it slavery. I think that we ought to be the first ones to say, bro, that was called you working off your debt. That was my employee for the moment because they couldn't pay me in money, they paid me in labor. That ain't my slave. We should fucking fight that. We should say, bro, quit calling it slave. I shouldn't have to make us say that. It's like we trying to be what the colonizer is. But if I ask y'all, was this kind of slavery what they did? No, it was different. See, we wouldn't know. Well, quit calling it that, in my opinion. You know.
Yeah, Sanchez, I think they burned all our books, all our literature, and rewrote everything, repainted everything. And a lot of this stuff, I think they do get from us. You know what I'm saying? Like a lot of this stuff they found, been here. You know what I'm saying? Like all of this stuff, if you look at it, the Moors, the Berbers, and all the Africans put all this stuff together, and it's still here. If you really look at the buildings and the technology, and even the literature, they just kind of put a spin on it, but they did a bad job to where you could see the forgery and everything. You know what I'm saying? So well, it's obvious that they were the first slaves. That's where the word comes from, Slavic. You dig? And they just rewrote it. They burnt all the old stuff and rewrote it and made it like we was the damn slaves to mess with our psychology. But it's obvious we wasn't. You know what I'm saying?
And look, I'm gonna revisit this. I'm putting this out there, planting this seed. We want the smoke. Get in the comment section. I'm gonna end this stream. I only was gonna go an hour, right? But I just wanted to put this out there, calling out the smoke, because I really want to grow with this conversation and bring out the people that teach it and let them know they can be comfortable discussing it over there. And I'm exposing my arguments to the matter. But yeah, salutes to y'all. I'm about to get up out of here, man. I just
All right,
was
man. Y'all
fucking
stay
around
up.
for
Appreciate you,
hours.
bro.
Sure.